Marhaba, hello. My name is Ian Campbell, and this is the 10th in a series of videos designed to teach you the Arabic alphabet and sound system and to prepare you to learn vocabulary words. In this video, we're only going to learn two letters, Ain and Ghain, but Ain is the hardest one of all to pronounce, which is why we're going to take it very slow on this one. So let's begin with Ain, which is a connecting letter, and we use the number 3 a lot of times in faux text English to represent it. And the reason is because when the letter is by itself, it looks like a big old backwards number 3. So we have this little hook here up at the top, and then a nice big round tail like a jim. So back in the late 90s, when text messaging could only handle our alphabetic characters and not the Arabic alphabetic characters, because the Ain looks like a backwards 3, they used the 3 to represent it. Just like the hat sort of looks like a number 7, and that's why they used that. So Ain is not particularly difficult to draw, but it's got a couple of little tricky bits to it, so let me get to that right now. Pronouncing it is another thing entirely, but let's draw it first. So by itself, it looks like this backwards number 3. At the beginning of a string of letters, we're going to make the hook at the top, and then we're going to go on to the next letter. The hook is maybe halfway up to the dashed line, so rather taller than the tooth of a ba, ta, or tha, but not as tall as a dal or thou. In the middle, it's going to have this kind of unusual shape. It's a loop, but it's a flat triangular loop, and it's going to go like this. And it's really important that you make it flat, because if you make it a regular round loop, you're going to mix it up with another couple of letters that we haven't got to yet. If we want to expand upon this shape, let me do that right. If we want to expand upon this shape, we're going to go up and then around like this. It's a little bit lopsided in calligraphy. That's kind of the proper way to make it, with this sort of tail going off here to the left and then a little bit rounder on the right. If you just make it a triangular loop like that, that will do just fine, and you needn't worry about it. At the end of a word, it's going to have this same weird little triangular loop, and then we're going to go down and make our tail like that. And this is where it gets tricky, because if we have final ha at the end of a string of letters, it's going to look like this. It's going to look a lot like an Ain by itself. And if we have final Ain in a string of letters, it's going to look a lot like a hat by itself. So this is counterintuitive. These two shapes resemble each other, and these two shapes resemble each other, when in fact these two shapes and these two shapes are the ones that ought to resemble each other. So this is one of the trickiest bits about teaching people to write the Arabic alphabet, which is why I'm bringing it up right now, because it's counterintuitive. So final Ain looks a great deal like a ha, and final Ain, looks a great deal like a ha, and final ha looks a great deal like an Ain. See, I kind of messed it up there myself, because it's really easy to do, especially at first. So I want to draw your attention to this, and when I put up the PDF of this particular video, I will make this clear in other text. So Ain is not particularly difficult to draw once you get past these tricky bits. However, it is the most difficult letter to learn to pronounce. And this is how I usually explain it to students. Remember when we learned ha, the other really foreign sound, we pretended that we were a dog who was really hot. Like this. All right, for Ain, we're going to pretend that we're a dog that's really suspicious, and we're going to growl. I want you to growl like you're a suspicious dog, and I want you to put your hand up to the very bottom of your throat and feel the cords of tendon or muscle tighten at the base of your throat. Like that. That's where the Ain sound is made from. The other tricky thing to know is that it's a consonant, not a vowel. So now you're going to make this very deep in your throat, not quite an English R sound, but you're going to cut it off like it's a consonant. I mean, it sounds, we only make this sound in English when we're trying to imitate somebody trying not to throw up. So it's not something we do very often, and you have to get used to it. I'm going to give you a ton of pronunciation examples after I go through Rhein here, and you can hear how it comes at different places in the world, excuse me. The key feature that you need to do is pronounce the ein. A lot of English speakers will just skip it over, and this often creates real gaps in understanding. Learning to do it isn't terribly difficult, but it does take a good bit of practice. So I'd like you to focus on that in your studies. Now let's look at rein, which is just ein with a dot on top of it, and thus from a drawing it perspective presents no problem. Rein is a sound that we don't really make in English either, but it's easier to make. So imagine you're going to take a sip of water, which I'm going to do right now, and gargle. That's what you're doing to make the rein sound. If you learn to speak proper snooty Parisian French, it's the French R, that sound. So rein is the voiced counterpart to cha, by which I mean if you're making a cha and you vibrate your voice box, you're making a rein. Just like if you make an F and you vibrate your voice box, you're making a V. So this is very common, or tha and val are a good pair in Arabic as well. So make a cha sound and then vibrate your voice box at the same time. Like that. What it is not is an English hard g sound. So don't make a g sound when you see this. Make a r sound instead. It's a little tricky, but not nearly so tricky as ein. So let's go down and give some examples here. So starting from here, we have Arab. Not Arab, which is what this word means, Arabs, plural, but Arab. So Arab, like that. Start by going and pretending you're a suspicious dog, but then turning it into a consonant. Arab, Arab. It takes a little practice, and this is one of the hardest things about learning basic Arabic, is pronouncing ein and also ha correctly. So practice it with your instructor. Practice it with native speakers. They'll really help you out. So Arabi is an adjective, Arabic. And if we're going to learn the Arabic language, which happens to be a grammatically feminine word, we're going to say Arabiya. And this technically has a shadda here over the ya, Arabiya. But nobody says that. They just say Arabiya. So here's Ibri. So Ibri is where we get Hebrew in English from. Hebrew and Arabic are closely related languages. So Ibri is Hebrew, and Ibriya is the Hebrew language. So now you see they come from very similar roots. Here's Ein Ra Ba, and here's Ein Ba Ra. So watch out and don't mix them up, because it's really easy for novice and intermediate students to transpose them and come up with all sorts of really amusing misunderstandings. Say Ibara. So not Ibara, but Ibara with the trilled R and everything. Ain and Ra like to go together in words for reasons I've never quite understood. Say Ajib. Ajib is a great word. Wonderful, marvelous. Now say Abd. Abd, not abd, but abd. Now, it's very common in Arabic cultures to name children, male children that is, with this word. So abd means, depending on context, worshipper or servant or slave. In this case, it's worshipper. So the name of this man will be Abd, and then Al, and one of the 99 attributes of God, though in practice it's really only about 25 or 30 that you ever hear. So one could be Abdul Jabbar, the servant of the powerful one, or Abdul Karim, the servant of the generous one, or Abdul Majid, the servant of the glorious one. And this is very common to name male children this way. So, for example, back in the 90s when the singer Paula Abdul became famous, I was always like, Abdul what? What is she abding? So this is something you'll see. Abuda means bondage. So you could see the Ein Bat Dal here for worshipfulness or slavery or servanthood. They're related concepts in the language. Now say Eid. Eid. Eid means holiday or festival. So like Eid al-Fitr at the end of Ramadan, for example, when everybody can go back to eating, because Fitr means breaking your fast, so it's literally breakfast holiday. So Eid is a word that comes up a lot. Now say Abid. Abid. When we take the letters of the root, Ain, Bat, Dal here, we put Alif in between the first two, Kasra in between the last two, we get the do-er of that thing. So an abid is a worshipper, a server. Now say bad. Alif bi hamza, and then Ain with sukun is a really common combination of things at the beginning of a word. So bad. Yad is the plural of ait. So yad. I'rab, which is the practice of marking words for what we call case, what they're doing in the sentence, something that you don't have to learn to be a good novice or intermediate Arabic student. So i'rab is this word. Now try it. Ya'bur. Ya'bur. Don't say ya'bur. Don't say ya'bur with the uh-oh sound, the hamza sound. The ain sound comes deeper in your throat than the hamza sound. So ya'buru. Ya'buru. Ta'bud. Ta'bud. So there it is. You'll see it at near the beginning of a word with sukun on it a lot. Now say with ta marbulta at the end. Shaja'a. Shaja'a. Not shaja'a, like the uh-oh sound, but deeper in your throat. Shaja'a, like that. And this is for the root. This is bravery. The root for courage is sheen, jim, ain. So tasjir. You see ain at the end of a word a lot. And this is where it's really difficult to pronounce. With ta marbulta after it, it's easier. Shaja'a. But here we have tasjir. And you just have to end on that clenching your throat muscles that we just don't do in English unless we're trying hard not to throw up, which hopefully you're not. So, tasjir. Tasjir. Not tasjee, but tasjir. And then you have that clench at the end. It's tough to learn. Once you learn, it's easy, but it does take a bit of practice. So please take the time to make that practice. So tasjir is the act of encouraging someone or being a cheerleader. Ashja. Say ashja. Ashja means braver, bravest. Now say wada'a. Wada'a. If we get a vowel sound after ain, it's significantly easier to say than if we don't. Over here, ashja. Over here, wada'a. Having a vowel sound after it makes it easier. Now in practice, you're usually going to run a word like this together with the next word. And that way you'll get a vowel sound to drag the ain off of, which makes it easier. Wadda. Wadda. This one's a hard one to say. So wadda is the verb for to put something down or place it. Wadda is the act of doing that. So wadda. It's really challenging for a native speaker of English to do this. So don't be afraid to make the mistake. Don't be afraid to seek out help from native speakers or your professor. Tawadu. Tawadu, which means humility. And then we have usbu. And this is the tricky one to say after long vowel wow. So when we have long vowel wow, native speakers of English are always going to want to say usbu. They're going to want to put a vowel sound after this ain, and you have to learn not to do it. Usbu. Usbu. Usbu means weak, W-E-E-K, not W-E-A-K, because it comes from seb'a, which is the number 7. So seb'a is 7, and usbu is weak because it's got 7 days in it, which is where that comes from. Now try ibda'. Ibda'. And long vowel alif and then ain is also tricky, just like long vowel wow and then ain is. Ittida. Ittida. So that's a challenge, and you need to learn to make this sound, because if you just say ittida, people are really going to mishear you or misinterpret you. So please take the time to learn to do it. And then ghain is much easier. So gharib. Gharib means strange or weird, so a good word to know. In fact, its opposite, I need more room to write that, pardon me. Its opposite, since it's easy to learn adjectives with their opposites, is adi. So adi, something that you return to over and over again is the idea, is normal, and gharib is weird or strange. Say ghamid. Ghamid means dark or obscure. Yughayyir. Here's our kasra below the shadda. Yughayyir. So yughayyir means he changes or alters something. Raghba, raghba. So here's a ghain with a sukun on it. Raghba means desire. There is no English R in this word. This is r at the very front of your mouth and then gh in your throat. Raghba, raghba, like that. And say sabagh, sabagh, with a double bass, sabagh. And this means dyer, D-Y-E-R, like someone's last name. It's a common last name in Arabic as well. And then we say saghir, saghir. So this is a word that's a mouthful for an English speaker, and it's really common. Saghir means small or little, and it can also mean young with respect to a person. It has no English R sound in it. Every novice Arabic speaker wants to say sarir or sagir or something like that. Nope. Saghir. Saghir. R is in the back of your mouth. R is up near the front of your mouth. And Arabic loves to put these two sounds together. So just keep practicing this word. Saghir. It's very important. And go find someone to practice your eins with. And I'm going to say